And we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 15th episode of the Finish Line Formula Podcast, where we give you the ingredients to not only get you to the start line, but also to the finish, because we all love finishing. Anyway, I'm joined here with the Noosa Marathon Boys in person. We've just finished a lovely event at the Gold Coast Running Festival. Let's get into it. Fantastic. We have just wrapped up week 15, 16, 14. We've wrapped up a week of training. We had the Gold Coast Running Festival half marathon this morning. We're going to get into how that all went, how the carb load yesterday went. But quick announcements: podcast availability, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast. And Cam's back. Welcome back, Cam. We have a live audience, but that's all right. Anyway, my name's Nick. We're just going to go around and introduce ourselves. So, yeah, my name's Nick.
My name's Big Willie.
My name's Daddy Sean.
And I'm Cam.
Will's actually very small. Okay, cut that. Cut that. Anyway, topics for today. We're going to talk about the Gold Coast Running Festival half marathon, how we went, how we wanted to go, expectations, I guess, the foreseeable future as well, what's looking like the next 4 weeks as we lead into Noosa Marathon. And the other thing we're going to talk about is how the carb load went, because I'm pretty bricked up from that still.
Nice.
Anyway, Cam's back, so we're going to give him the honours of giving the high-level overview of the training block for the week, if we've got it up. Have we got it up? Wow. Have we got it up? I've got mine up. So let's start with me anyway. As always, we had 29 Ks last week. 23 Ks was at marathon pace. Monday, rest day as per usual. Tuesday was a 14-kilometer day with a 5x600 meter session in between. Wednesday was a 21k MLR. Thursday arrived on the Gold Coast Anzac Day parade in the morning and then followed that up with a 12-kilometer recovery run. Friday, another 10Ks at recovery pace. Saturday was an 8-kilometer shakeout all up, and then this morning we had 21k half marathon and then a bit of a warm-up and cool down. Ended up being about 28Ks total for me.
All right, sounds good. So the boys had a cheeky 72k week this week, starting off with a 94% speed. That was 12Ks with 5 times 600 at a 5k pace. Wednesday, a long 18k. Rest day Thursday. On Friday, had a recovery 8k with 600 meter strides. On Saturday, had another recovery 8k. 6Ks in the morning, 2Ks in the afternoon, and then today a 21k Mara, which was fast for everyone except for me. All up though, got to 26Ks, including the warm up and the cool down.
Nice. I just remembered, Cam, that you actually haven't done this. Did you mention that?
No.
So Cam is still on the mend back.
Yes.
He's going to be there at Noosa running a 3:30, but he's got a different road to these boys. So that was what the program was. Cam has been in LA, so he's been doing his own thing. That may or may not have involved In-N-Out burgers and some Mexican.
Spoiler. It did.
But he's on the men back. Performed very well. He's going to get into that later on. But I'm going to pass this mic to Will, and he's going to tell us how he went this morning.
Let me actually take us back to earlier in the week. There was a bit of a discussion between Sean and I around what pace we would aim for. And to be completely honest, we kind of had this big audacious goal of cracking 90 minutes. But I'm not sure about you, but honestly, I didn't have much faith in myself that I'd be able to do it. For those who don't know, that's roughly around a 4:15/4:16 pace. And yeah, I'd never gone that quick for that long. And so that's what she said. But yeah, I hadn't done that. And so it was uncharted territory, and I had no idea what to expect. So being completely vulnerable for a moment, I was very, very nervous starting from about 2 p.m. yesterday. I couldn't shake off the fear that I was going to get out there, get 16 Ks in, and then conk out. But fast forward to this morning, got up, had a decent amount of sleep, and the carb load and all that yesterday went quite well. I think where Nick and I, which he'll touch on this a bit more, but we kind of messed up 2 days prior to that with our food intake. It wasn't that high quality. And so I definitely did feel a bit of that today. However, with that being said, to get straight to the point, smashed out a PB. So I had set the goal of 129.59. I really didn't care if it was dead on that 59. Ended up going out and doing a 127.16. So approximately a 4:08 pace according. Yeah. Whilst I was actually on the run, I had a bit of an issue. It's a bit of a callback joke to last week. We put up a video of Davis Clark at the 7 kilometer mark. No, actually it was earlier than that. At about the 3 or 4 kilometer mark, my gut started to feel a bit rough. I'm going to save you too many graphic details, but yeah, at the 3K mark, I thought I'd followed through. Thankfully hadn't. At the 7K mark, I just knew I needed to go. It was a 10 out of 10 like emergency problem. But they didn't have enough toilets along the way. So I kept setting myself these goals of, okay, when I get to this restroom, I'll stop and I'll get that sorted. Every time I got to the different restrooms that they had, which wasn't many, there was a line of people, or the toilets were already blocked up, like people were already using it. So ended up having to push through all the way through to the 21 kilometers. Thankfully, there was one right at the end, which rest in peace to that restroom. But yeah, to be honest, man, I was struggling all race, and like Cam got some videos of running past us, and each time I was giving an update on how much I was struggling to get through. So
I'm going to Davis Clark myself, I think. Kilometer 17. Still haven't Davis Clark yet, but I need to.
You were locked in.
I was absolutely locked in. More like blocked up, but so yeah, I had said this on previous episodes. My biggest worry wasn't pace or anything like that. It was more so to do with, I guess, toilet habits, do you want to call it that, leading into the race. And it's a very real thing to be concerned about. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do now leading into the marathon, because it's, yeah, I think I need to sort out something dietary wise, because I can't have that problem again. So sorry to be a bit graphic to all you listening at the moment, but I think this is a very real part of running that a lot of people don't talk about, other than Davis Clark. So
look, if anyone complains, you just say it only smells.
It does only smells. But yeah, so a 127.16 completely blew my mind. How's that going to go for the actual? Okay, these guys can't handle their joke. But so
Who's gonna put a video?
no, I'm not put.
Who's gonna put that on the screen?
There's the link.
Just it only smells. So, to summarize or to give a like most high level recap, how so leading now into the actual marathon itself, does this mean I adjust the goal? Short answer is yes, but I kind of already knew that from the start that 3:30 was just kind of a benchmark, and we'll see where we were closer. Now, I don't think I'm quite capable yet of doing a like 4:15 or 4:16 for an entire marathon. I reckon I could have done maybe 32 Ks, but hey, we've still got a few more weeks, so we'll see how it goes, and I'll see how I'm feeling on the day, because like I said, you can set a goal, but you might get out there on the day and feel great, or get out there on the day and not feel great. So with that being said, I'll pass on to Sean.
Well, that's all we got time for today, so we'll see you next week. No, it was so, like echoing what Will said. The last Sunday when we did our 29 Ks with 23 Ks at marathon pace, I ran a 1 hour 41 half marathon. So that was kind of the first time where I thought maybe 1 hour 30 was on the cards for a half marathon, but it was definitely at a pace which was on the very limit of what I can currently do. So that became the goal this week. 2 nights ago, I actually had a bit of a nightmare about whether or not I'd be able to finish in the time, but we ran hard, we stayed locked in, and I came out with a 1:28:37, which I am stoked with. So
Nice.
I absolutely tucked into that tarmac. Other than that, I guess course-wise, there was a absolutely nasty hill that we had to climb twice. I think, were you saying it was like 10 meters of elevation over 100 meters?
Yeah, look, talking about the event, let's get into that. It was a great event, all in all, but the course itself, they must have found the biggest hill on the Gold Coast and smacked it right bang like 2 kilometers. And what people don't understand is running up hills are fine. On a sharp hill, especially in a race where your quads are fatigued, is the eccentric loading on the downhill, I believe, is worse over like a marathon distance, because when you run up a hill, your heart rate gets elevated. I don't think you use the loading on your legs is less than it would be going down a hill, if that makes sense. So 2 of those downhills kind of put your legs in a fatigue state that would take many more Ks running uphill to accumulate. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Obviously was unexpected, that hill, and yeah, we got it done. GTJD.
What about you, Cam?
Yeah, so going into this race, I had a bit of a different expectation to the boys. I'd spoken to the physio, and he basically gave me the all clear to run, but he said, take it easy, put on your slow shoes, just do a 6K. I haven't run this far in 6 weeks.
I don't know. I was going to say,
weeks.
Cam, take it back even further, mate, because take it back to, I guess, your first...
Growing up in South Africa.
South Africa, bro. It all set me up.
You learn to run fast.
Yeah, I take it back to, I guess, coming back, because you've had a couple of runs, and just take it back to like LA, being in LA, and the runs you got done there.
Yeah, so I took, as you guys may know, I've taken quite a few weeks off now, and right as I was starting to feel better, I have a business trip over to America. Where I was in LA, San Francisco, and then Arizona. I did a 10K run in San Francisco. It was the longest run that I've done in quite a while, and I started to feel pretty good. I then went to Arizona three days later, and I was like, you know what does a marathon pace feel like? So I did a 5K at marathon pace, and it just absolutely beat me. I don't know if it's that kind of dry Arizona air, but it felt like there was sandpaper in my nostrils. And just didn't feel good at all. So landing back in LA, I did, I think, one, maybe 3K run, but I was gonna call it because I knew that landing back in Australia, I had this. I've only been back for about 24 hours to give you guys an idea. I landed yesterday morning. I met up with these boys this morning on the 24-hour mark of when I had landed back in Australia, and that's about a 14-hour flight. So coming back, I was pretty uncertain. As of yesterday, I wasn't even planning on doing the run because my physio had basically told me it's not a good idea. And then talking to him a little bit more, he said, you know what, why don't you do it, but just keep it at a 6 minute per K. And yeah, if you guys can see my Strava, you know that didn't happen. So basically I went into it about the 2-3K mark. I was feeling pretty good. And to summarize the run, I finished on about a 5 minute per K. I think it was about a 1:45, 1:46 maybe. And yeah, so obviously considerably slower than these boys, but all in all, zero hip pain, zero pain of any sorts. Now it's just going to be the question of kind of, you know, tucking in and making sure that I can get to that 3:30 marathon that we have in a few weeks.
Loves a good tuck in. That's Cam's back. All I've got to say is Cam's back.
Good to be back.
He's had some tumultuous. Is that the word? Couple of weeks. Is that the word?
Treacherous? Tumultuous?
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Yeah, I said that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can say tumultuous. Yeah.
And now he's ready to tuck in to the last 4 weeks of the block. So I'm looking forward to it. I know you folks out there watching are looking forward to it. Cam's a distinguished member of the Noosa Marathon Boys. He's been sorely missed.
Yep. Everyone loves an underdog story as well. These boys, if you saw them running, well, there'll be a few videos up on the socials. Everyone was looking good. I think the only person that it's really going to be interesting to see if gets this 3:30 is going to be me at this point.
And that's going to be, I guess, a conversation between me and Cam's physio and programming. And we're going to be tipping that edge. We're about to taper, so we're just going to get the tip in and
just keep edging.
we're going to be pushing that limit. Yeah, so we're going to be pushing that limit of the next 2 weeks, because what I want to see from Cam is to get enough volume through his legs on a long run that he's able to withstand the marathon distance, but not too much that his hip flares up again and then he can't run. So it's going to be tiptoeing on that line and just edging through that. So yeah.
Try not to finish too early.
But Nick, how was your half marathon?
Yeah, so the goal was sub 80. I know I've put that out there, and I'm going to run sub 80, just not today. So all in all, it was a tough run. How do I put this? I know my fitness is there. I just didn't have it today, really. Residual fatigue, I can put it down to fatigue. I can put it down to my calf hurting from the alpha flies. I can put it down to the humidity. I can put it down to the hill in that course. But at the end of the day, my training is obviously not at that level where I'm able to run a sub 80 during this block. And I guess the silver lining to that is that it's not the goal race. The goal race is Noosa, and I've done everything on the training block and plan to run my goal time in Noosa. So yes, it may be a sad day, and I'm just going to be vulnerable here. I know this is a safe space with these three blokes, and yeah, before I get emotional, it may have been the result I didn't want today, but that's not. There's more to life than just running sub 80 minutes in a half marathon. There's more to life than running, without getting too philosophical. But yeah, enough about me. The goal is Noosa. We're going to run fast there. One more week of massive volume, couple weeks of taper, and then we're going to tuck into a nice 42.2 kilometer run in Noosa.
Absolutely no poison.
No poison. Out. What I wanted to talk about was, we've talked about the half, we're all a little sore today after that. I know I'm going to be very sore in the morning. My calves, my quads, I can already feel them. And usually after a race, if you're sore going through that finish line, you're going to have a bad 24 to 48 hour period of, I guess, letting that soreness peak and then getting through that. I know we've got tomorrow off, so it'll be a massive day of legs off. A massive day of off legs, so not much walking, keep your feet up type stuff to get the recovery process started. Massive sleep tonight. Nutrition, that's one thing we're going to touch on as well, is the nutrition side of things, because as Will mentioned, we came up here and let's be honest, there's a lot of temptation on the Gold Coast, and yeah, we just ate poorly, and that's what do you call it? That's the consequences of eating bad food, is when you start putting E10 into Ferrari when it needs 98 unleaded.
Thanks for clarifying.
I just like if you're like a person, not a car person, you might not know what fuel is. I don't know. You might be on the electric vibe. I don't know. So when you start putting E10 into a Ferrari when it needs 98, you'll find that it just doesn't perform as well. And that's, I think, a big part that I'm gonna knuckle down on over the next 4 weeks, is dialing my nutrition back in. Because not only do I look better, I feel better, I'm more energized. I know I've been a bit sluggish while I've been up here as well. All in all, we're just going to tuck into some great food. Anyway, Will's going to talk about his experience with the bad diet thing.
Yeah, I'll touch on that a little bit.
Try see if you can cover the back, because it's probably a bit
Oh
windy.
yeah, true. Nice. It looks like I'm lighting up a cigar or something. But so where was I up to?
Talk about diet.
Yeah, so I'll touch on the diet part for a little bit. There's actually another topic I just want to more bring to the group as that we can all individually talk about a bit more. Is we've kind of given them the factual information around what we did today, but we haven't quite touched on, how would I describe it, more so around the actual mental game of what was going on during the race, because 21 Ks, it's a long time, or hour and a half ish. And so because of that, there's a lot of thoughts that you have, and yeah, I think it would be kind of interesting to see where each of us were at throughout the race. So quickly, I'll touch on the food. Yeah, about 2-3 days ago, we had, when we first arrived in the Gold Coast, Nick and I had KFC, and it was not good. Yeah, not this guy, but anyway, he did. We had a fair amount of KFC, and we even chose specifically the ones which are meant to be healthier, in brackets, kind of the ones where it was like just the chicken breast and all that, and it just don't do it. It's not worth it, especially this far out from races. I'm really starting to realize how important it is to have the cleanest diet possible. And hey, it's not much of a sacrifice for 3-4 weeks or something. So lesson has been learnt, and we'll bounce back leading into the actual marathon. So anyway, to bring up the actual topic that I want to discuss a bit more was the actual mental game of what went on. So obviously I'd already briefly touched on that before, which is about how I had the nerves going into it. And following back, I know I've referred back to Ed Goddard's episode a fair bit, but it's an absolute gem if you haven't already listened to it, because he speaks of this. It's actually a good thing to go into it and have nerves. I've found personally in different race things that I've done, or really anything that's a challenge in life, if you don't have nerves going into it, that you're probably being a little bit too careless about whatever challenge it is that's ahead of you. And so rather than freaking out about the fact that the nerves were there, I really tried to sit with them and kind of, just utilize it to my advantage. So race started, Sean and I were sticking together. That was kind of the unspoken game plan, I think. We went out, and I've learned from my previous races that it's so easy to immediately go way too quick. And so we initially headed out, and Sean said something before about how we were somewhere around like the 3:15 pace. Is that correct? Yeah, we were around like 3:15 pace for a second there, and so I told him to kind of like, well, yeah, basically we slowed it back down, and I just kind of told myself, okay, I don't know if I can hold this 4:15 pace for 15 Ks, so let's just go. We got 1.5 Ks before we hit this hill. I hit the hill and got to the top of it, and I felt good. I'm like, okay, maybe I've got this. I kept checking the watch I'd say that first 5 kilometers, I was checking the watch every 500 meters or so, just to make sure I was on pace. At a certain stage, I realized what 4:15 felt like, and I just told myself, stop looking at the watch. Kind of like I've said on previous episodes, stop looking at the watch, otherwise I'll freak out and start caring about my heart rate, caring about all these other things. I purposely did not look at any of it. Once I realized I was hitting 4:15s by about the 7K mark, my attention, not by my own choice, my attention was diverted to the stomach problems. And at first, it was really getting on my mind. I started to freak out a bit and go, damn, am I about to like stop, ruin my race or something, all because of something that to me just felt so minor. And so I really had that playing on my mind from kilometer 7 through to about kilometer 14. And at a certain point, I kind of decided to go, hey, the circumstance is what it is. I can't actually change that. So what's another way I can look at this? And what I told myself was, it's probably a good thing that I've got this massive distraction that's going on in my stomach, because it's distracting from the fact that my legs hurt, my calves hurt. My lungs were fine, thankfully, but all my other muscles and joints and all that were severely hurting. And I found almost like it was a blessing in disguise that meant that I could just keep pushing, so that by the time it hit to kilometer 20, I just was dropping down the pace at that stage. That's when I really felt like I went from 4:15. I kept looking down, and all of a sudden I was looking at 4:09s on my watch and 4:07s, and that's when I was like, okay, maybe I really have got this. I guess all this to really say is, I have no idea what the fuck I was trying to say, but anyway. But to close off my experience is, at a certain point, I just kind of realized I've got it in the bag. And I think it was purely because I chose that, although the situation was tough, that I could just focus on on how the difficult challenges that I've got, how they're going to make me stronger leading into the end of the race. And so because of that, I found that really, really helped me kind of push through the actual event. So yeah, that's my...
And the other thing, just to add on to that, is the hardest part about running is getting there to the start line, is putting on your shorts, putting on your shoes, as says. That's the hardest part.
It's not running 4:15 pace.
Everything after that is nothing. Like, come on. What the
Short little interlude because the weather went to shit outside. As far as the race goes, I think I was saying something along the lines of K7 to 10 was brutal. I don't know, for whatever reason, I think it was just getting to the halfway mark at the 4:12 pace that I was running. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it a whole nother lap. And I kind of just took the mindset from there that I was just going to do one little section at a time. So for this particular course, it was doing the turn, getting to the hill, running up the hill, then pretty much going to each drink station and just taking it one section at a time. And then near the 15K turning point, I finally caught up to the 1 hour 30 pacer. I was like, oh, sweet. I've caught up to him. I'm just going to sit with him and he can carry me through to the end, maybe sprint ahead at the end. But when I got to him, the dude was like, because I had my music playing, I didn't really know what he was saying, but I'm pretty sure he said he wasn't going to make the pace. And I looked down at my watch and he was running 4 minutes 50 and a 1 hour 30 pace is 4:16. So I was like, are you joking? I've just done all this effort. And I was like, finally found the pacer. I'm going to stick with him. And then I just turned to him and said, I think I got a bit more in me, and just kept on going. And from there, it was just staying focused. And
Yeah, because pace in a race, you want paces to kind of pull you along, and it's more just a mental thing. Like Sean's saying, if you can switch off your mind from the pace, from a pace point of view, then it can just you can kind of zone out and remove yourself from your body. And
the whole time I had to be looking down at the watch and checking how my pace was, because Will, on the downhill after the first lap, he kind of surged ahead. So it was just, the two of us, we were just kind of running by ourselves. So
The only reason I surged ahead is because I knew I needed some gap if I was actually going to go to the restroom. That's the only reason I sped ahead.
Good reason.
So yeah, it was definitely challenging, but I also do, by complete coincidence with the training that we've been doing on the longer runs, what works out for where I live is I run a 7-kilometer loop, and each time I'll stop for water, get a gel, and do stuff like that. So the final 7Ks in the half marathon today, I knew that I'd be able to run that faster, because in all of the Sunday long runs, I always do the last 7Ks much faster, sub 5 minutes. So it was still definitely in the pain cave and having to push through it, but I knew I could do it. And the last 2Ks, I was definitely trying to muscle past the gag reflex, trying not to spew everywhere. So that's how it went for me.
I got to admit, I don't think I went into this. Yeah, I don't think I went into this race as prepared, as diligently as I would.
Do you mean mentally or in another way?
In all ways, as I would be with the marathon. In terms of, usually I like to plan out, like you guys said, have checkpoints, but I would have pre-planned what checkpoints I'm looking at. Usually I go, I'm going to be lapping, trying to hit paces, and then lap those every 5 kilometers in a marathon. I didn't have any of that. I was just kind of like, sub 80 is 3:48 average pace on my watch. I want to say 3:48. So there was no game plan. I know we mentioned 7:77 last week, but with this course, you couldn't really do that, because 7Ks, it just didn't really work with this course. I guess it was a 2 laps, 10 kilometers thereabouts each, and you'd want to break it down even further. So ideally, you'd want to almost go the first half when you get over the hills. That's one section. The second section's the flat out and back. And then when you hit those rolling hills on the way back, you want that to be another section. So you'd almost want to break the lap into 4 sections and then do that twice. I just kind of threw that out the wall, and I probably have the most, not negative, but let's call it negative.
Frustration?
No, I'm just saying like experience, because you guys ran well, whereas I would say I didn't run what I wanted to, but at the end of the day, it's still kilometers at less than marathon pace in the bank, so I'm not really too concerned about not hitting sub 80, because that's not the goal. But what I'm saying is the mental aspects that are going through my mind is like, first little bit you try to cruise, and then you think to yourself, am I running too fast? And then you're always questioning yourself, or am I feeling good? By the first turn, I was already thinking, on that run back after the first turn, I was already thinking like, how am I going to hold this for another 15 Ks? If you're asking that in the first 8 Ks of a half marathon, you've kind of lost it already by that stage. And then it's just like a mental warfare, because you're psyching yourself out to like stop, because my calf was hurting. I was like, should I pull up because this isn't the goal race? Should I keep going? And then you just start playing mind games with yourself. And that's going to happen in the marathon. Hopefully not to the same extent. Like, it will be to the same extent, but it's different. Different because, I don't know, you kind of... If this was a goal race, I probably would have been more focused, but I was kind of like daydreaming and stuff, and yeah, it is what it is.
I was going to say, well, I guess for you, you kind of know what you're capable of, both in the marathon and the half marathon. Like, you definitely, as you said, have the fitness for a sub 80 minute. But I think for Will and I, especially going back to when we started training, we have absolutely no gauge for where our fitness is, especially using this to kind of benchmark what the marathon's going to be. So I think for the two of us, it was just the excitement of pushing for that PB and really trying to break through to the sub 90 minutes that opened it up for us.
Yeah, and I don't think, like you say, I know my half pace. I know what I want to run, but it's one thing knowing what you want to run. It's another thing knowing where your fitness level is at a particular point in time. So let's say, as you're saying, yes, I might want to run sub 80, but my fitness might be 81 minutes. So I've gone out too fast, which means I probably could have run quicker today, but because I went out too fast, the back end of the race kind of slowed down. So that's just pacing and strategy. And I go back to, in my head, I just go back to, it was 21 Ks at 3:52. Marathon is in 4 weeks. Taper's coming up. I'm going to have fresh legs. That's not the goal. It's GTJD.
We're about to move on to Cam now, just to hear what he mentally went through, because it's a different challenge in a sense. One, coming off an injury and all these other parts. It's injury, the sleep deprivation, all that. It's going to be interesting to hear what your perspective is on how you on how you strategize, how you felt, all those different aspects.
Yeah, so going to the States, obviously when you're traveling that much, it really takes it out of you. So I landed and immediately started feeling pretty shit. Went for a 10K run, which was my first 10K in quite a while, and kept about a 6 minute per K. And I was feeling it on my lungs, I was feeling it on my legs, but all in all felt pretty good. So fast forward through the rest of the America trip, I was, late nights, diet was pretty average. And something that you don't quite realize when you start to dial in your routine is that toilet aspect. So usually I wake up, have a coffee, kind of toilet, say like within that 30-minute window. It's pretty consistent every day. When there's a 17-hour time difference, you don't actually realize how much that affects you. So I was waking up and just kind of not, like, my body didn't really know what to do with itself. The good news is that I was only there for 9 days. I came back, I arrived 5 o'clock yesterday morning. I was basically just trying to stay awake. Talking to my physio, the goal of this run was just to get it done. The goal was to get about a 6 minute per K, which would have been probably a little bit over a 2-hour half marathon. And so yesterday I was pretty content with not completing the marathon at all, because I'd spoken to the physio, and as I mentioned before, he basically said probably not a good idea. You're going to be tired. You were sick while you were in America. You haven't done a run even half that long in quite a while. And so rocking up to the race, I was pretty content with just finishing once I got the green light from him. And so heading out, something that a lot of people talk about, but that I didn't really grasp until I was there, was just the energy of being in that line, being in that race. Obviously, when I was with the guys in the line, they are part of the faster division. And so when I went back to where I thought my section was, kind of the people that were looking to run a 6 minute per K, I ended up sitting with the 5:30s instead of the 6s minute per Ks. And so when we started out, everyone was actually running a lot quicker than I expected to. So once you've had an injury and once you've come off of an injury, which I think everyone here has now done, there is this really complicated relationship where you go, well, I actually feel really good, but all it takes is one misstep, one kind of, maybe I'm going a little bit too quick. And I'd spoken to my physio and he had basically said to me, like 5:30, that's kind of where your hip will probably start to hurt. So don't do that. And I was right on 5:30, but then 5Ks in, 7Ks in, 10Ks in, I was still feeling pretty good. So I decided to kind of not go for it, but go for it within reason. And as I mentioned before, I finished around that 5 minute per K. And that's with probably the second half of that race being in the kind of 4:45, 4:50 range. So it's definitely been a different relationship with my body, where I've gone from my biggest issue being how sore my legs are or how kind of my lungs are burning or my general fitness, to if I push it, am I about to set myself back 3 weeks? And that is something that for all you kind of new runners out there that haven't really come up against, it definitely starts to weigh on your mind. And so today's race was, even though I didn't get kind of the time that I would have wanted to get a few weeks ago, it was a personal triumph because it showed I was able to show myself that at least I'm still in the running and I'm not as far back as I thought I was.
Yeah, absolutely. I was, being completely honest, I was concerned that you wouldn't finish the race, not because you mentally couldn't do it. I was concerned that the injury was going to pop up again. So I'm really happy. Yeah. I'm really, really happy to hear that you've not only finished the race, but you felt competitive by the end of that. That just means that, following on with what your physio Corey says, should see your race day, should also still see you cracking that 3 hour 30.
Let's go. That's the goal.
That's it. So, yeah, we'll pass it over to Nick to close off today's episode.
Episode 15. We are now 4 weeks away from Noosa Marathon. Let's go. We all can't wait to tuck in to the last 4 weeks of training. That's us.
Only 1 week of the block before taper.
That's yeah. That's right. So let's tuck into these next 3-4 weeks of training. It's going to be good. We got coming up a double episode with Cam's physio here, Corey. We're going to split it out in half. So we've got that next week. Yeah, and you know where to find us, Finish Line Formula, all social medias. Our personal one's going to be down in the description. And share this with someone who else. Share this podcast with someone else who ran Gold Coast Running Festival. Maybe they had a different experience to us. Yeah, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.